Okay, today we are going to draw a crab cake. This is what it's going to look like. It's when it's finished. It looks so cute with these Google eyes, and it's going to be really, really fun. So first thing you're going to do when you get to your seat, we always write our name nice and neatly and your teacher's name on the back. Do that right there in the middle so that it doesn't get accidentally cut off. Then on the front, you're going to have this half circle tracer, and I want you to place that near the bottom. Hold it down with one hand and trace it with your other hand. Now this might be a little tricky. You're going to have to go slowly on that curved part and kind of move your hands so that you get that traced all the way around. If you accidentally draw on the tracer, that's okay. Looks like a big smile. So at this point, we're going to try to make this line really nice and dark. And the rest of the crab, we're going to actually draw together. So you're going to do this while you're waiting for Mrs. D to give you the next instruction, and we'll draw the rest of the crab together. But I want you to notice how I'm going around that line and making that line really dark, kind of so it really stands out. That's going to make that line really stand out, to make that a little bit of a thicker black line all the way around the edge. Almost got that finished. And then you can pause and we'll do the rest of it together. Okay, so once we've drawn our crab, and I'll do that with you, you're going to get to paint it. So we're going to use these watercolor paints, and I have a paintbrush here for you. It's a happy paintbrush. When you paint something with your paintbrush, you want to tickle the paint. That means I'm not pushing hard with my paintbrush. I'm just slowly tickling it. And we're going to paint our crab red. And I've got my crab painted red. Now I want to remind you, when you're painting, you want to make sure that you're just tickling the paint. If I push really hard with my paintbrush will be mad at me and it won't paint as nicely. And I like to use that paint in a nice smooth back and forth kind of motion so I get all those white spots. When you're finished painting the crab, you can rinse out your brush and then you can paint a different color. Now you might want to paint your sand brown, you might want to paint it orange. I kind of like using orange first. And then just like with our crayons, we can mix colors together. I'm going to get a messy mat so I don't get any paint on my table. So when I'm painting my sand, I kind of can go right over some of those lines that I drew with my crayon. And I'm going to go slowly around the parts that I don't want to have orange on. And then I'm going to slowly take my paintbrush to the edge of my paper. Now you notice how my paintbrush is still happy, but doesn't have as much orange on it. So I might have to get a little bit more water on my paintbrush and then tickle my paint again, and then get a little bit more of that color on there because I think that bright orange looks nice. And I'll show you what it looks like after that's finished. All right, so I painted my sand and I added a little bit of yellow to it, and I think I'm gonna add a little bit of brown underneath where the crab's shadow is. So if I just get a little bit of brown and I tickle that brown and I put it underneath where the crab is, it kind of blended in with my orange a little bit. It starts to look like he's got a little shadow, like he's scurrying along the bottom of the ocean, trying to carry his cake where he needs it to go. So I'm gonna put that brown on top of my orange, just kind of like when we use crayons and we add different colors, it makes it look more interesting. And then when you're finished with one color, you wanna make sure you give your brush a bath in that water. So I'm just swirling it in circles on the bottom, give it a good scrub, and then I kind of press it to the side of my bowl. I'm not going to tap it because that could accidentally splatter water on someone else's paper or my own paper, and I don't want water splattered on it. And then I want you to think about the color that your ocean would be, probably a blue or a green. You're going to pull that paint around your crab nice and carefully, getting that ocean painted in. That's a really pretty blue. I want to go slowly next to some of the things I've already painted in. Just making sure I'm not getting that blue on top of my cake. And you notice where I have the parts where the eyes are going to be. I haven't put the eyes on my cake yet because we're gonna get Google eyes next week when we're finished with these. And I'm going to paint right over those so it looks like he's kind of going through the water. You notice how my paint looks like it's dried out, so I need to get a little bit more water, a little bit more paint, and I'll show you what that looks like when the water's all finished. All right, so I got my water all finished. I sometimes like to add a little bit of purple or green on top of my water just to make it look a little more interesting, and sometimes I use just little brush strokes kind of like on top of my purple or my blue, whatever I use for my water. And that kind of makes it look like there's some nice interesting colors and lines on my water. Then when I've got my water finished, and you can go ahead and start painting in your cake, you might still want to stay with that purple. And you're going to paint in any designs that you created. You might just want to paint in the whole thing. Maybe I just want to paint in the whole thing purple. And that's fine too. I could probably go back on top of my purple with another color. And I'll show you how to do that. So I'm going to paint in my purple cake, kind of making my paintbrush nice and even, making sure I get those white spots. If I want to switch to a different color, I got to rinse out my brush, give it a little push on the side, and then I can switch to another color. I think I'm going to paint this kind of an orange color, and I might paint this little seashell kind of an orange color. And then I think I'm going to rinse out my brush, add a little bit of brown to my plate here. Kind of like I painted my sand, those brown. Just going to mix that brown in with my orange so that those get mixed together like it's a plate. You might want to use black. Then I have one little thing left to do, so when I finish, I'm going to rinse out my brush again. Got to think about this one. I haven't used yellow yet, so I think I'm going to use yellow just on this bottom part. And then I have an idea. I don't know if I should use green or if I should use red for that top part. I haven't used green. I think I'm going to use green. So when you're painting, you want to be careful with your paint. Anytime you switch to a different color, rinse out that brush so that no one else gets to have their paints mixed together. And I'm going to have that look like it's kind of seaweed melting on top. And I'm almost finished with my seaweed. And then next week when we have them dry, we're going to add the Google eyes, and we'll add a couple more fun details, and then we'll be finished.